Now these are the nations which the Lord left, that he might test Israel by them, that is, all who had not known any of the wars in Canaan. This was only so that the generations of the children of Israel might be taught to know war, at least those who had not formerly known it, namely 5 lords of the Philistines, all Canaanites, and Sidonians, and the Hivites who dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entrance of Hamath. And they were left, that he might test Israel by them, to know whether they would obey the commandments of the Lord, which he had commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. Thus the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their gods. So the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God, and served the Baals and the Asherahs. Therefore the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Israel served Cushan-Rishathaim 8 years. When the children of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for the children of Israel, who delivered them, Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel. He went out to war. And the Lord delivered Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand. And his hand prevailed over Cushan-Rishathaim. So the land had rest for 40 years. Then Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. Othniel was the first official judge in the days before kings were a thing in Israel. The opening chapters of the book of Judges tells us that Israel would repeatedly go after foreign gods and be seduced by the sexually saturated worship of the Canaanites. The first chapters also tell us that Israel did not do what God said in completely and utterly destroying the Canaanites from the face of the earth, which they should have done. And so as a result, they would rebel over and over and over and be taken into captivity. And after a few years of captivity or harsh oppression, they would cry out to God, repent, and God would raise a leader to deliver them. We also know from earlier verses that Othniel is the younger brother of Caleb, one of only 2 men who were optimistic about attacking Canaan in the first place. He was one of the only ones who thought they could successfully defeat and drive out the Canaanite inhabitants. So God raised this Othniel and activated within him the warlike spirit that is latent in all of us, in all men, which leads to my favorite component of the verse for today. He went out to war. The Israelite nation was repeatedly saved because men were willing to rise against their captors and go to war. We can see that freedom is bought through the price of war, and it is this warlike nature that we must cultivate as men. After cultivating it, we then direct that warlike nature into constructive pursuits, learning how to use a seemingly destructive energy in a constructive way. Men are made to go to war, whether with themselves or with real physical enemies. David saw Bathsheba bathing on the roof because he was not out with his men during the time that kings go to war, according to 2 Samuel 11, verse 1. Though it's easy to sit back in the comfort of our warm homes, be armchair theologians, and criticize David for what he did, it is true that it could have been avoided if he had been at war with his men. So today, identify just one component of your life and go to war with it. It can be something you want to change about yourself, like a bad habit, or it can be something on your to-do list. You need to find something in your life where you can activate your warlike spirit, start using it, get used to using it, and go to war. Whatever you need to do, you need to conjure up your aggressive energy and direct it towards a task at hand. Don't let religious people discourage you from using violent energy to accomplish whatever your goals are. This warlike nature is a gift from God that allows men to go to war, whether with a physical enemy or with their own weaknesses. This warrior spirit is a powerful reserve of energy that remains untapped by so many men because they are taught from a young age not to hit, bite, and to share. And now many young boys are actually being punished in schools for drawing guns on paper. While that might seem useful to make men more socially acceptable, more socially appropriate, it is not beneficial in times of war when men need to take up swords and spears against an enemy. Nor is it helpful when men need to conjure up the energy necessary to go to war with themselves. As we constantly mention, we are at war with our own flesh, according to 1 Peter 2 and verse 11. And since we are at war, we must take violent, warlike action against our flesh. So like Othniel, the judge of old, it is your job to go out to war. Conduct yourselves like men.